All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Most certainly and most definitely, we're in the alligator pit. We're in the deep end of it where it get real dangerous and deadly. And I just want to, give a major salute to all the people who are going to tune in. Some of you going to see it live, and some of you may see the recording after it's finished. But much gratitude to you. Also for the people that have supported and purchased the book already through the email. I appreciate you. So much love and much, thankfulness to you. So tonight's video is once again we just continuing to push the line with promoting Scorperotika, which basically was a book that is to encourage more reading, to make the literacy somewhat increase for those that choose to engage, and just to bring reading back to America, in general, because now we in the digital age, people are familiar with the tablets and the phones, and you see everybody's faces into it, which is cool, but we also want to, encourage using our own imagination and being able to read a book and using our own intuition to create geometric images in our mind based on what we're seeing in the book. So that means that we're using our own imagination versus just, typing something into an AI and letting it create an image for us. Um, Also, we're doing this to just enlighten and show that, it's cool to be a deep thinker. It's cool to, be intelligent. And also, too, it's cool to be creative in school. It's cool to be intellectual. Um, and tonight's video is specifically dealing with, a phenomenon that I noticed growing up in school. And we're going to have a guest on and let this brother, give his take on it. But before we go into it, I want to let the guest, introduce himself. You all are familiar with him on previous videos, but right now we'll let him, give a little, background on who he is.
Yo, what's going on, family? Look, the boy G Love checking in. But yeah, I really just wanted to just probably speak with the people that's just on some real thing. How Blackbeard was saying, it's really just time to not even necessarily get educational, but make reading just education cool again. You know what I'm saying? Especially think about our ancestors and whatnot. Like we was the ones who really created civilization. We was the ones who even taught the Europeans how to write and all or whatnot. So you know what I'm saying? Really kind of just making reading and just education cool again. You know what I'm saying? I still been on the same things, just farming, been tapping into the electrician flow for real. So but the empire is steady going. Like it's not something that's a one-time thing. So we steady going higher and higher. Then we got the Scorperotika coming out too. So I'm definitely excited for the good reading. We're gonna get into some good information tonight.
Right, most definitely. Yeah. So, all of y'all are familiar with him. Sometimes y'all may hear me call him, the boy Red Stick, the medicine man, this the medicine man of the Red Stick family. And you all have seen him before on the page when he was, giving us a breakdown of some of the trees and stuff when we were on the land in Southwest Georgia. So, salute to the brother G Love. Much work we've done with him and much more to come into the future. But he's just a very, very key part to setting up that sovereign, independent infrastructure, because the way the world is going now, you may not be able to depend on a lot of these, corporations and this concept of the mega city. Some of us, may have to go to the rural, remote areas and be able to, farm, set up shop, set up our own defense and be able to secure our own stuff. Even though you still may have some in the city, you may want to have something like that as well. So this is the man with the plan to help us do that. And we appreciate having him on the show. So what I'm going to do is kind of give a prompt and then let the brother take off. But basically, as I was saying, y'all see by the title, it's the nerds versus the gangsters, which is something that I saw growing up, middle school, high school, starts in elementary. But basically, when we grew up in the so-called Black community, Black American community, at least, I grew up in Clayton County in Riverdale, Georgia. Hold on real quick. We got another guest. We got the brother Crosswire in the building. Can you hear us?
Yeah, man. What's going on, everybody?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, we got that boy Medicine Man Noah in the building too, man. Got the brother Crosswire just popped in. Yeah, Crosswire, go ahead and, give a little quick shout out to the people and let them know what's going on with
you. Yeah. What's going on, everybody? Just checking in, boys. Houdini Crosswire, coming back, getting ready to go into another discussion. That's our third one we getting ready to do. Today we got a topic talking about, a little special thing that we kind of been discussing for a couple of years now, describing two archetypes that, we generally see in our communities out here. Of course, whether it be a Black community or the white community, this does exist, but prevalently more so in the Black community. This stands out more with the nerd archetype and the gangster archetype, and we just gonna give y'all our opinions and our perspectives on that, and even get a chance to see what you guys think about it, because I'm sure this is stuff you all have seen in your lives, and probably never really had a chance to even talk about, but this would be something we can shed light on. And we got my boy Noah in here, I heard, and my boy Black Mirror Raj, and we just gonna go ahead and continue this on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Most definitely. Most definitely. So what I'm gonna do is just give a little background prompt, and then we're gonna let these two brothers go in. Yeah, but as I was saying, as the brother Crosswire I went into, we see these in all ethnic national groups throughout the United States, but in particular in the so-called Black American community, you really see it. And depending on your personality, will depend on the types of circles and environments that you may find yourself in. So I grew up in Clayton County, more so in Riverdale, Georgia. And, it was a mixed type of environment, of different types of people. And basically my personality, I was more inclined to hang with different groups of people. So some of these were the people from the so-called nerd group. I could relate to these guys because I had a personal interest in just expanding my own brain and being intellectual. So in school, I like to learn more so for myself and more for like a personal advancement. It wasn't even really to get grades, and even it wasn't even really because my parents wanted me to do it. It was just I had a personal interest. So, me being into that, of course, the other people in school that have that type of interest, I'm gonna gravitate towards them and they're gonna gravitate towards me. But also another degree of my personality, could be rather aggressive. And the streets is it's like the form of the devil's playground to certain type of brothers that got a personality, and you can go out there and express certain traits that everybody else may not be necessarily into. So it allowed me to also be around those type of guys, people that may be labeled street dudes or so-called gangsters or whatever you may want to call it. So, and usually these two groups of people, these archetypes, they don't really mix. Usually people are polarized. They either are viewed as a nerd or they viewed as a so-called gangster, but then you may have people like me who have a little bit of both in them. And I just noticed as we started to age and progress in life, as that fork in the road, the two different paths that they went on. So for example, like in the morning, a lot of guys that may be gangsters, I can remember whether it was a bus stop, getting off, going to school, but everybody coming to school, they got their book bags, their pencils and pens and homework assignments and books. But a lot of the gangsters, they did it. They just coming to school either empty-handed or got a book bag with nothing in it but a piece of paper or something like that, for whatever their reasons are, because they didn't want to put forth that effort. And as we got older, I noticed that these gangsters, eventually they're going to want to get out of maybe a criminal mentality and want to clean their life up, try to do the right thing, may want to get into entrepreneurship, but they don't have the skill set. So a lot of them are illiterate, and you all see it in these interviews with these rappers and these street guys. They can't, pronounce words the right way. They can't, convey concepts that they have in their mind. In other words, they're not really that good to listen to. They can't really, communicate well. And a lot of this goes back to them doing poorly in school and not being interested in it. And now that they're older and they may want to get into either the rap game or some other industry, but these same nerds that they used to either clown or look down upon or frown upon back when we were in middle and high school, now they need these nerds. They need these nerds for accounting. They need them to do legal work. They need them to edit videos, and all other types of stuff. And it's just kind of funny how the tables turn. So, to the two guests, and, we'll start with the brother, G Love. I want you all to kind of talk about your experience with this phenomenon and give us a little bit of game on that.
Yeah, I can definitely relate myself. I grew up in the cab as well, and it was a little bit of a similar dynamic. I kind of leaned a little bit more with the nerd crowd. I was, saying a little magnet program intelligence, but even hanging around the so-called streets or the gangsters, saying I was always able to fit in, or I never had any issues, mainly because I always kept it real, so I never tried to flex. I never tried to act like something I was not, saying. So I was able to kind of go between both worlds, but that is something that kind of, as you get older and as we get older, you kind of see those paths diverging, especially for a lot of folks that was caught up in the streets. It's like, it really kind of ends in a bitter end, saying the ending is not really too bright. Saying a lot of times we see on social media, everybody's flying, saying you got the money, you got the girls, the nice car, saying it looks like a beautiful lifestyle, but when them cameras go off, like it's really a savage reality for real. And especially when you talk to somebody real from the streets, how they say like a real street nigga is really either dead or in jail, and that's like a real thing for real. So especially for the brothers, it's like it's really no way to. It's no quick come up. You know what I'm saying? Like that's something that we get showed a lot on TV. Like, oh yeah, I done came up real fast, but a lot of people who come up fast, they end up losing it real quick. And it's like, as a brother, and really just anybody, especially for the brothers, like y'all got to take the long road, and that's something that I've seen in my life. Sure, I just hit my 30s, and I'm still working. You know what I'm saying? Still trying to break through, go through certain things. So it's like that long road, and really, what as the brothers, you really got to be the best of both worlds. Like you got to take the smartness from the nerd and take the street and aggressive mentality from the streets, and really blend those together, because really that's really what the original black man and the Aboriginal people was. You know what I'm saying? We kind of are, I guess we are looking at a split personality. They've kind of separated the nerd and the street mentality, but really both of those things are archetypes within ourselves. So really your key to success is blending both of those, because even whether you work in like a corporate job, whether you started your own business, like you need some of the mentalities from the street. Like you don't want to just be out here just trusting anybody. You know what I'm saying? You got to be able to look out and sustain for yourself, but you also need to know how to think for yourself from the nerds. So just having the best of both worlds and blending that. But you know what I'm saying? That's the kind of main thing I've seen is being authentic to yourself. And even for the so-called guys that may feel like you're a nerd, you ain't got to necessarily feel like you are less than, you know what I'm saying? Cause like that's something that especially I can relate to in school. Folks used to pick on me, you know what I'm saying? They would pick on me just when I got A's in class. And at first I used to kind of feel insecure, you know what I'm saying? Like thinking I was lame or something, but thinking because I'm smart. But it's funny how the tables turned. A lot of those folks who was talking or picking on you, now they hit me up for money, you know what I'm saying? Now they need me for job opportunities. So you really got to just lock in and be authentic to yourself for real. So that's the key to success right there.
Right.
So Crosswire, what about you?
Well, as far as my earliest memory with that, I can remember just going way back to elementary school. I always remember like it was the guy that was like that was kind of like getting the girls and stuff. He was always like, or he was like somewhat of a bully, and niggas was like kind of scared of him. That's the earliest memory I remember of like that gangster archetype. And I remember this, like I said, as far back as in elementary school. And when we started to get like in middle school, that's when like, I remember that same archetype of guy. He wasn't really like in school like that. He was more so in and out, of alternative school, but you still knew about him, when he was around and stuff. But one thing I always remember that archetype that differed him between like the nerd was, it seemed like the nerd always had like a crush on some girl that was around, and that same bad guy archetype always had like that female that the nerd wanted. And this is what I started to kind of notice, more so towards like middle school. But one thing I will say about like that nerd, like quote unquote archetype, I guess in our generation, we kind of, grew up in a more technological / analog type of era. So we didn't really get to see the whole dynamic of how, I guess, like when you would see the Revenge of the Nerd movies back in the 1980s, when, the nerd guy who was, wearing the Dockers, like shirt and going and playing Dungeons and Dragons, and you know what I mean? And he couldn't really never get the girl. When he finally got to college, he finally got his chance. Like we never saw that guy kind of like that. Like kind of like that archetype guy when we were in school. Like the nerds, I remember, honestly, I mean, I guess you could consider me one of them. They were the guys I remember that were drawing Dragon Ball Z. They were, like I said, we were in school talking about GameCube and at the time PlayStation 2 games, and it was like different levels of nerds. I remember it was like, you had the video game nerds, then you had the ones like who kind of seemed like they were somewhat like mentally, a little distorted, those like kind of guys. And then then you had like, your nerds that were like really artistic, and they were into like anime and like, things of that nature. So out of all of the ones that I remember that kind of had the hardest, it was usually, of course, like the socially, challenged ones that, that people used to pick on and stuff. But I remember it was just always like different ones. But when we were growing up in Clayton County, it seemed like a lot of them didn't really get picked on once they got to fighting with somebody. Because it was always like a known fight that one of those nerds got in, and once he stood up for himself, he wasn't really being picked on like that no more. So it was almost like some, prison type of stuff,
Yeah.
And this was what I kind of remember mainly in middle school, because I mean, even with myself personally, like when I, like I said, I was growing up in Fulton County schools. And then, saying, like growing up in College Park and all that, you had the Red Oak community. A lot of those kids were bad and stuff like that. But when I went to Stonewall Tail, it was a little bit of a mixture. So we weren't really like fighting in school and doing all. We kind of were, more so just trying to be fresh and roasting each other and having fun. But when I got to Clayton County and started going to Point South, like it was more so like, no, you had to be fighting. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you couldn't be getting picked on and stuff. Cause you got off the bus, you seeing motherfuckers, pockets getting ran through, you know what I'm saying? Motherfucker, you in 6th grade, you seeing 8th graders and 7th graders running through niggas' pockets, and before we going to the gym where everybody got to sit down. You seeing people, standing right there, in the middle of the sidewalk, and people walking around. And I'm like, well, I ain't finna be getting tried like that. You know what I'm saying? And this is just what was going on in my mind coming into middle school. So, it was like at that point, you kind of had to make a choice. Either you were gonna be food for somebody that was in a higher grade, or you were gonna stand up for yourself. And a lot of the guys I remember that were the quote unquote nerds, when they did that in middle school, they were okay in high school. It was like they could do the little Dragon Ball Z thing and anime and drawing and stuff like that. And they of course weren't around the gangsters or nothing like that, but the gangsters did respect them because they knew that them dudes would fight them. You know what I'm saying? And they weren't no bitch. So I started to kind of notice that, like in high school. Then, in the later years, of course, that nerd archetype, he had his choice then. It's like, okay, am I going to try to go further in my career? Am I going to try to develop and advance myself and educate myself in what I'm doing? Or could I just be a nerd archetype where I just, like video games and electronics and stuff like that, but I'm not really developing myself fully as a grown individual. So, I just started to kind of see in life, as times moved on. Now that I'm in my mid 30s, a lot of those guys, they still are like those same archetype guys from when we were in high school. Like they still are like that same Dragon Ball Z, guy, and really looking to see what probably still like the same girl from when we were in high school and all that stuff. And believe it or not, that same gangster guy, he still is stuck in time from when he was in high school, thinking the same way, probably looking at trying to get the same girl and got the same feelings like that nerd. It's just not really expressed like that because he has all this street credibility, and I guess people are somewhat afraid of him and all these other things. But I think in this new era that we in the 2020s, from people that have grown up in the millennial generation, like this, they could kind of somewhat, intermingle with each other because they, like I said, like a lot of those nerds that grew up during this time, some of them stood up for themselves and they got into industries and they able to mix and, and kind of build careers and stuff for themselves. But not only are they smart, but they also know that too. They kind of got the same ways like this gangster, because this gangster dude he's emotional in his little ways too. It's just not really expressed like that because everybody's focused on the nerd. So they really are about the same, in a lot of regards. When I look back on like my history with both archetypes and my experiences with both, it's like a lot of them, really both have the same similarities of insecurity.
Right. So I want to ask the medicine man this. Some of the brothers, that's in the Bloods, they got a term where they say they're gonna put somebody on the plate, but basically mean like you the target that everybody about to go after. So do you remember any situations in like middle school or high school where you saw somebody get put on a plate, or you like get so-called bullied or anything like that, and you just can't remember it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Plenty of situations like that, and kind of even how Crosswire said, it's like mainly the ones who didn't know how to stand up for themselves, or the ones who was trying to act like something they not. Like you was the main target, you know what I'm saying? Because people can smell you from a mile away. So even if you're not out here trying to act all hard or whatnot, if you just carry yourself being real, that kind of, I won't necessarily say to give you a pass, but people just know who you are from a mile away. So definitely a lot of times in middle school, and a lot of times it might have been the nerds of people who come from a good household trying to fit in, trying to carry the image of the gangster or the street guy, and that's not what you really are. Like you the easiest target, so you're gonna get played like a fiddle. So a lot of y'all, got ate up and did get ate up and then continues to get ate up, and then even how Crosswire made a good point with the ladies and with the women too. They can see the same thing. Like you trying to be something that you're not, so you'll never get the girl because she really can't respect you. You know what I'm saying? So they're trying to be something that you're not is something that kind of really stuck out from middle school. You know what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to like the fightings of folks getting jumped. You know what I'm saying? Like naturally, people gonna pick on the easiest target. So if you don't know how to carry yourself, if you don't know how to speak up for yourself, if you don't know how to defend yourself, like yeah, you're gonna get picked on. You know what I'm saying? It's a savage world. You know what I'm saying? Even how Crossfire said the prison mentality, like. It's a dog eat dog world for it, especially, you know what I'm saying, everybody trying to survive, come up, and especially we young, we in elementary, middle school, we trying to find some sense of identity, so everybody trying to find their place in this crazy world. So a lot of folks who are mainly trying to be something that they not or trying to fit in, those are the ones who's the easiest targets.
Right.
Just to elaborate on one more point, when I look at the origin of the gangster, some of them started out as the nerd, like I said. I mean, when I look back on, like I said, a lot of guys I remember that was joining gangs, especially like eighth grade. This was around like 2004, 2005 to show my age. Around this time, like again, like I don't know how it may have been for speaking on anybody else's situation, but around this time, growing up in Clayton County, Riverdale, Georgia, at this time, the gang thing was very big at that time. And I mean, I'm sure you guys could look on the documentary that was released. I mean, but in like as far as in the regular society, what was going on there, it was very big at that time. So if you were like in the ages between, I would say like 12 and 15, like you definitely were at some point like gonna be introduced to some gang coming to you. So it really made like that nerd and like gangster, it made it more like kind of like where you had to really stand out at that point, because the nerd guy, I mean, naturally, he wants to, be that guy, that he never normally is. Like I said, playing the video games and all that. But now he got all this gang shit going on around him, in addition to it just being a normal peer pressure thing that you're dealing with. So he's really encouraged now to have to stand on his own and possibly even like I said, now become the gangster. Just for the mere fact of his circumstance. So I can only imagine again if you somebody growing up in the Chicago or New York or Los Angeles, in these places where all that stuff is strong, because a lot of these guys probably started out as the nerd, but they, but because of the environment, now you're getting sucked into being the gangster just for you to survive.
So it was something that that both of you all hit on a good point. The first is, do you all see the image on the screen and can you see the text in the bubble?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna get the brother Medicine Man to read what he sees in the bubbles, and then I want both of you all to break down what you all see going on here.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So on the top one, you got the nerd guy, saying, crushing on the girl. He probably been choosing on her, walking through the hallway, and she calls him a fucking goofy, saying, you're not having any type of me. And then what does he say? He says he hates street niggas. But even in that picture, something he don't know is that the gangster guy secretly envies something that he has too, saying, yeah, he might have a woman or whatnot, but they really secretly envy each other. Saying? Then of course it's funny how years later the tide changes and Shawty, saying she want to get with him, of course, saying she has a baby, another baby on the way, and he say hell no, and she still calls him a goofy, but she was still trying to get with him, but of course, saying that female pride, she'll never accept it, can't accept the rejection, and saying it's just funny how times change.
So Crosswire, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, like I said, I'll kind of see the guy, probably like, middle school, I mean, 10th grade, probably high school, seeing the same situation, old girl fresh in, she ain't really had her first kid yet. She probably, still like, excited by, the fights that she had seen old boy get in and, or maybe like, saying some shit he did and she's kind of nut riding that. She probably looking at old boy like, he ain't doing that. His name ain't really ringing no bells. You know what I'm saying? He probably ain't getting no pussy. He probably, can't really fuck right. And just, he's not a man basically. And then this image of this guy, because he may have swung on some nigga a couple of years ago, or maybe got in some fight or did some shit, maybe went to jail, probably, got locked up or some basic like that, and y'all about 16 years old. that, you know, he's a man, you know, and he gonna be able to protect her, and, you know, and this other guy, like, if some shit coming his way, that, you know, he gonna fold. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what I see in the top. And then in the end, you know, in this part, you know, about mid 40s, 30s, probably looking like she about to have her fourth kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, situations with old boy probably didn't work out when she was about 18. Probably had about like four other dudes like that, you know what I'm saying? Then it came along. You know, maybe one that probably got a decent job, but he then got sick and tired of her because he got to take care of them other kids and deal with all her drama and stuff. So now she at the point where she just like, man, like, you know, I need help basically. And you know, and you know, he probably got down, you know, probably had pulled up to the gas station, you know, probably to just get some little gas because, you know, he didn't really want to go too far, and he was in the neighborhood and stuff, and then just so happened to see her. And bro, you know, I you know, probably went to school, and like I said, did the right thing. Probably wasn't, you know, he probably really wasn't getting no pussy. Probably really was, you know, reading in the books, didn't have no friends around, and now he got the good corporate job. You know, the white boy done really patted him on the head, and you know, everything looked like it's going the way he needed to go. And he done ran into her, you know, and at the gas station, and, you know, probably seeing, you know, that, you know, this is the same female that hated on him and all. It's probably like a sort of slick erection for the mere fact that she wants him, and but an anger, you know, for that she didn't want him back in the past, but then sort of a certain ego where he now is the man, and now he doesn't have to choose her, and with her. And just being real with her, she really don't care if he want her or not, because it's still gonna be another nigga that's up top that she gonna be able to get in the same situation. So I mean, really, you know, none of them win at the end of the day.
So let me ask y'all this: how come in the top image after the girl rejected him? Because notice that the street guy in the top image, he don't have any bubble about him, so he's not saying anything. But why is it when the nerd sees that she called him a sucker or a goofy, why does the first thing he says that he hates street niggas, even though the street nigga didn't do anything to him?
They probably externalize it, you know what I'm saying, instead of looking at itself. Or it's easier to hate on somebody else than to work on yourself, really.
Well, but like I said, yeah.
But I was gonna just say though, but like, does a street nigga have something that guy wants? Like, I guess,
yeah, he does.
Like, what do you think it is?
Probably just how Crosswire said, just that gusto, or even going through the early fire, you know what I'm saying? Because even the street guy, ain't no telling what he got going on at home. He might have to be the father at the house, you know what I'm saying? He might be in middle school, but he probably got to take care of his siblings, you know what I'm saying? He might have had some older people trying to do something to him, so he had to grow up real fast. So just that, whether you want to call it just that edge or just that fire, that's what the nerd is kind of missing out. So he does idealize them, and deep inside he knows that's what the woman's attracted to, but he hasn't developed that within himself yet. So that's why he hates the street guy, because secretly the street guy is really who he wants to be, and even if it's not directly some of those archetypes and energies that he wants to carry that same energy, but you know what I'm saying, he hasn't developed himself to that point yet.
Yeah, because it kind of reminds me of like when Steve Urkel would turn into Stefan. And Laura, you know, she didn't like Steve because he was acting like this geek, basically a guy who hadn't, you know, went within himself and fully developed. But really, Stefan, it was Urkel. It was just he had more charisma. He was more refined. He seemed more experienced. He could communicate better. He was less awkward and he could socialize. So it was the same man, but he just had a more developed personality and archetypal traits that could have come from just life experience. But he looked the same. He just didn't have no glasses on. So it's interesting how you say that. So Crosswire, let me ask you this. So kind of go a little bit into like when you were saying how the nerd, you know, he gets a certain sense of joy and glee that the ran through woman, you know, wants him now at this older age, but he feels like he still can reject her.
Right. Well, like I said, you got to go back into, like, you know, that nerd, you know, in those middle school years, you know, because this is when, you know, like you say, he's developing as a man. He's starting to realize, you know, that, you know, he's getting an arousal. He's starting to, you know, realize that, you know, just being a girlfriend, having a girlfriend and just holding hands, he's starting to want more than that. But now, again, like this gangster guy, he's actually having sex, and he's hearing about this like in 7th grade, you know, it's PD, He's seeing this, this girl, touching on old boy, saying why he ain't paying attention in class, in the back of the class and stuff like that, while he has to be focused, because he got to get these good grades. So all this stress, all this disdain, all this discomfort from all these years is just built up. We say from the age 12 to really his 30s, of not getting the pleasure, having to abide by what this white boy say, having to do things the right way of what's quote unquote. And now you finally have this position, where you now are, somewhat in power, because you have this choice in what you feel like, you could marginalize yourself to do, or what you think you're marginalizing yourself on. So I think that, that allows him somewhat of a power. But again, like, just to answer your question, what about about the gangster guy? I mean, it just kind of made me think too, like, you got to realize this nerd has had encounters with this gangster guy. Like I said, like, this nerd, had his, lunch money taken by this guy. And, saying now when lunchtime come, he got to eat the regular lunch. Like, he can't go get the Vita Pups. He can't go get the 50-cent soft cookies. All because the gangster dude done ran through his pockets when he first got off the bus. You know what I'm saying? He done seen the gangster dude beat up some of his friends. So, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, he hate that dude. And this shit happened in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. You know what I'm saying? Y'all get to high school, you see the dude, then it's like he's still doing it. So, yeah, he don't like him.
So this is the next thing I want to ask y'all. So last year, I was able to get in contact with a person, and we had a conversation, and it was one that a lot of people would not have expected. Basically, long story short, in my upbringing in the streets, you have conflicts with people. And a lot of these conflicts, the situations that started them were not serious, but the pain, the fights, the deaths that came behind those conflicts were real. And as time goes on, people mature, and you go to different levels of life and you reconnect. But the guy that I reconnected with, basically, about 10 plus years ago, he had a situation where there was a murder involved, and he ended up getting a life prison sentence in the state of Georgia with no parole. So as I was able to talk to him, I'm talking to him in prison while he has life. So you can only imagine just the mentality that one may have after you realize you're gonna be in prison the rest of your life. But we talked about a variety of things, and we also talked about this exact topic about the nerds and the gangsters. And I asked him about it, in his opinion, and basically he said, that all the nerds and the people that was looked at and laughed at and clowned, he said, now they the ones with the big houses, the children running around, and the wife smiling. And he said all the gangsters that had, the Pooh Shiesty mask on and was toting guns and had a name and was looked at as they got all the sauce. He was like, now we sitting here doing prison interviews. So what's y'all's comment on that?
Yeah, man, that's a cold. That was a cold statement when that man said that. I mean, not to go into personal detail with that man's situation, but again, like with that certain individual you're speaking on, this is one of the guys I was speaking on when we were in middle school, who never was in school, or constantly in alternative school, constantly heard about fights. Bro was like I said, school started in August. You see him in August, September, October, then goddamn December. He gone. He in alternative school. Then we in there 8th grade. He may show up for another month. We realizing, damn, how did he even end up in 8th grade? Then he gone. Next thing we in damn Monday's Mill, bro. Walking around the school for maybe about a month or two. Then he gone. You hear about some fight or something he done got in. So, with this individual that we speaking on, we just I mean, a long career, man, of just misguiding. A lot of just energy that was wasn't directed in the right area. Guy, like I said, that was fortunately used by older individuals, and what I'm saying, and just like I said, just kind of didn't really know what to do at that age, and it just kind of got involved in the wrong thing, which led him really to the situation he's in right now. So yeah, man, when that man, when you sat there and told him that, he's sitting in that prison wall, those dark walls, no sunlight, all these musty men running around you, dudes probably got 20-inch shanks, that they got hidden in their ass somewhere. niggas having to eat Fritos and Cheetos and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day for dinner and dessert. And that's what the rest of your life is. And like I said, pretty much just having to, really succumb to that and know that that's what you have to do really until the day you die. And he got this chance to sit here and, and be able to discuss this with you. And now he get to see all these things that he did in 2003 when they was telling him, like I said, you going to, having EIP in school and they, sitting down with your mom and stuff. And they telling them, yeah, we ain't gonna say him. We gonna say Mr. Mr. Patterson. Mr. Patterson, he's failing 7th grade language arts. He hasn't shown up. He's not getting along with the other students. He's constantly flirting with the females and stuff like that. He's not doing too well. He probably sat there and thought about those conversations that his teachers was having. He sat back and thought about the times he was in the streets and people that he was around. He probably somewhat looked up to and they let him down. He thought about again certain people that he got around when he got older, and maybe they resemble somewhat some of these guys that you knew previously in the streets that you don't trust anymore, and maybe you feel like you could trust them, and now they done did you wrong. So led you to these situations, and now you just sit here looking at all these choices and all these failures of just people that you've been around, and it just make you look back on that. And then, like I said, now you look at this other guy that you were picking on, or somebody you never thought that was just somewhere in the glimpse in the shadows. Again, like the people that this guy I'm talking about, he wasn't really a bully type like that, but he knew of that archetype that you talking about because he was around those guys, and he just got looking at probably sitting here thinking like, damn, like how they able to live now, and I'm here, doing this every day, and this is my life. And that's their life. So yeah, he felt like that. Like, yeah, man, this shit ain't it. It ain't it for to be sitting behind a wall talking about my life like this.
So, Medicine Man, what's your commentary on that? A guy who, made some moves, but now he got life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing kind of come to my mind is just like how a lot of young niggas don't have no guidance for real. Like, it's a couple paths because some people had the guidance and you just completely ignored it. You might have thought you knew everything, but it's like this life is cutthroat for real. Like, it's really like a wild jungle. Like, you know what I'm saying? I know they say humans is different, but it's really like the wilderness for real. So like them life choices, like ain't no way around it for real. It's like it's really just a savage reality, and really just both people got to learn from both perspectives. You know what I'm saying? Where if you the nerd guy, need to just work on yourself. Don't be looking at nobody else thinking they got something better than you, or thinking I wish I had this reality. Like even how y'all used to make the videos in the past, like laugh now and cry later. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you might want to just cry early. You know what I'm saying? Because like life has a interesting way of balancing things out. So you might want to just go ahead and take that hard path. Yeah, you may want to get the women. Yeah, you may want to be out hanging out, having fun or whatnot, but you might want to just be patient, just chill out for a minute, because that reality, the tables is going to switch later for real. So unfortunately, that's just a savage reality that a lot of brothers end up going through. And it's just showing you like them choices, man, for real, them choices. And you got to heed the word of the wise, you know what I'm saying? Like when somebody older, you know what I'm saying, and the ancestors, somebody trying to help you out, you know what I'm saying, it might hurt a little bit, but just listen for it, you know what I'm saying? Especially if it's people, they got your best interest, you know what I'm saying? Because they don't walk that road, you know what I'm saying? They don't seen what happened before. They just trying to let you know about life. So unfortunately, you know what I'm saying, then, and the sad thing is once the situation and once those walls close in, can't nobody save you, you know what I'm saying? People can pray for you, people can hit you up, even write you a letter, but can't nobody save you out of that reality. Ain't no Jesus and no God gonna come save you from that. You got to deal with it. So, but it's best to heed to the wise and learn early.
Right, I agree, man. I agree. So what I want to do now is I want to turn you brothers' attention to this gentleman on the screen. If you can see him, we just changed our image, and I'll give a little context to who this person is, and I want your commentary. So I remember when we were much younger, the boy Crosswire, he got his hands on this American Gangster documentary because, a lot of the times, as I say, we grew up in the streets, so we were able to relate to that in all pop culture, music, documentaries, TV shows, etc. So whenever it come on, we was on it. And when American Gangster came out, it first came out, I want to say it was like the mid 2000s, like 04, 05. but they had an episode on Stanley Tukey Williams, and he was one of the gangsters from Louisiana, I think, but he moved to California in his teens, and he ended up becoming one of the instrumental, I guess you could say, founders of the Crips, which is really the largest Black American gang. But
Mm-hmm.
and of course we got these, stories about Tukey Williams. Of course he was a muscular brother, so he was into the bodybuilding and stuff like that, working out. And he with a lot of these gangsters, they pick on people and they may bully on some people, or a couple of folks may get punched out or something like that. And this person on the screen in the documentary basically was someone who grew up with Tukey Williams and these other Crips. And I guess he had a situation where Tukey Williams either beat the guy up or bullied him or roasted him or joned him. He did something, I guess, to make the guy feel a certain type of way. And throughout the documentary, you could tell that his encounter with Tukey Williams basically threw off his entire trajectory of life, his life path. Kind of remind me of like when Crosswire say how some of these guys start out as nerds, but then they become gangsters. Now, I don't know if this guy became a blood. I don't know if he joined like a rival Crip set or whatever. But I do remember in the documentary, the guy was real tatted up. And you got nerds that got tattoos as well. But I could see the old him before the Tukey Williams situation when they were teens, and the new him that he became after that situation. And here he now also he's a grown man now. He could have been in his 30s or 40s when they made this documentary. And this is after the state of California put Tukey Williams to death. Like Tukey Williams was on death row. He actually ended up getting put to death. So even after Tukey Williams was put to death, after Tukey Williams, denounced the Crips, and even Tukey Williams started writing a lot of, literature for children to tell them about the streets and gangs and stuff like that. And I almost want to say that the Crips in the prison, when he denounced them, they turned on Tukey Williams. So he had to actually like defend his life against even other Crips because they didn't want you to denounce the gang. But I want you all to give me your comment on this guy here. And maybe like just some of his psychology and how he allowed this encounter with Tukey Williams to throw his life off. Whereas instead, he either should have shot a one-on-one with Tukey Williams, even if he would have got beat up, but he still would have retained his dignity and became whoever he was supposed to become. But just kind of tell me your commentary.
Yeah, man.
On that.
Yeah, I was going to elaborate. Yeah, man. It just kind of made me think, like I said, probably again, like, high school, the years was going on, and Tukey again, he probably seen him knock somebody out, like they say, like they got the idea of Debo from him, and somebody flew across the sidewalk and all that, and that probably scared him and made him, feel like that was gonna happen to him. So I guess whenever Tukey was around again, it was probably the same thing, and he probably saw bro was intimidated and picked on him, probably targeted him specifically because of that. And again, it was probably a lot of days that, he didn't get Vital Pups, and a lot of days he didn't get extra cookies. A lot of days he didn't get, extra Chick-fil-A that day. And, people probably were laughing at him, probably, after it happened, his friends, and probably saying like, dang, man, like you should have did something. And, and then he probably had to go home, with marks on his face, and, and probably think to himself like, I really want to kill him. But like I said, like you ain't thinking like the whole thing is just for the dude to see that you actually gonna hook with him. It's like, are you gonna just sit here and continue to let this happen? Or are you gonna show him that you a man too, and you ain't gonna just sit here and just continue to let the man do that? I mean, all it really takes is for you to just swing on him one time, and he make his decision on what he want to do. But at the end of the day, if he going in your pockets and you don't like that, then however you feel at that moment, I feel like you should just go on and express that. So. Obviously with this guy, he didn't do that. And like I said, all this pent up energy led to him, probably when he was like his late teens, to be like, man, I probably was already, thinking about, joining the gang. Cause, I know by me being in the gang, that'll make me feel some protection to probably where I can stand up to somebody like him and have the people around that I know will, probably bust him or, or jump in if I jump in, and fight him. So I know that I won't get beat too bad or whatever, like, sense of security he felt like that game was going to provide him. That led him to start making that decision. And who knows, he probably became a monster when he, actually became blood, just based off of, what it led him to do it. And, You know, and like you said, whether he was, you know, going against rival bloods or, you know, whatever rival said crip, it was again like he looking at anybody he's busting at, anybody he's swinging on, anybody he's slicing on, and he looking at them like that's Tukey. So yeah, Burt probably became a monster. And like we said, like when you see the interview, you felt the pain, like you see him crying, like you see him shaking and stuff like that when he talking about those stories, because he remembering all this stuff and he, you know, seeing back thinking like as this grown man, like I wish that I could have been this grown man in that situation when I was younger, but he didn't have the courage. So now as a grown man, you look like this courageless boy. Like I seen in
Courage the cowardly dog, man.
Cowardly dog, man. You know. And that's kind of what leads to these type of individuals, unfortunately. And you know, like I said, man, it's probably a lot of these guys out here, rather they show it, you know, and express it like this man did in the video, the interview, or like I said, you know, you see these guys out here just crashing out and you know, and just going after anybody. Like a lot of that energy, man, is pent off and built up from those low self-esteem moments they dealt with in the younger years where they, you know, should have swung on somebody or, you know, did whatever they were supposed to do.
Medicine Man, what you think?
Yeah, this is just a tragic situation because you can see it in his eyes. It's almost he's soulless, you know what I'm saying? Like bro is crying, but he's just basically looking at all his past deeds and just that weight of guilt and weight of regret. Like it's a heavy weight for real. So even like how Crosswire said, just that pent up energy, like he turned into a straight monster, but now that monster is turned on him. Even you know, so how they a lot of times they talk about it at church, like the devil he'll use you and spit you out later. And that's kind of what seems like happened to bro. Like whether he felt whatever he felt like he had to fit in or certain situations he might not have known how to handle, probably didn't know how to stand up for himself at that time. But it's just them choices, man. It's like life is just, and I guess can't nobody really, people can tell you, but until you go through it yourself, you know what I'm saying? But just them life choices, like they really add up for real. So it's no way of getting around it, you know what I'm saying? So just the bad choices he made is, he got to reap them, and it's, you know what I'm saying, it's just a heavy weight. He's really living in hell right now, you know what I'm saying? There's no way for him to get out. So you can just tell it in his eyes, you know what I'm saying? He's soulless and he's lost.
Damn. So let me ask y'all this, man. So back over the wintertime, it was like in December, you know, after a consecutive, you know, period of these audio leaks coming out from Fulton County or Cobb County, wherever Young Thug was locked up. We were hearing a lot of his private conversations, and you know, he did say some things that made him look very suspect, and people were calling him a rat and a snitch and all this type of stuff. And you know, and some of his other, you know, homeboys in the hip hop thing came to try to save him, and they came with this campaign about quote unquote F the streets. So I would like you all to give me some commentary on what does that mean.
That's really them. They kind of more so just basically really them saying F themselves because the streets didn't do nothing to y'all. That's you not being real. That's y'all not holding it down. Even like the whole Atlanta rap culture, like we really should have held them more accountable for real. Like y'all leading a lot of the young niggas astray. Like F the streets, how you gonna say F the streets? But that's how you came up. You rapping about it, you driving about it, making money off of it. But now when the Grim Reaper shows up at your door, now all of a sudden it's F the streets. Like, nah, it ain't the streets that's the problem. It's you and your own decision making that's the issue.
Right.
Yeah, man. I think with a lot of these guys, like I said, since they kind of seeing that, you know, this whole thing is like it's changing. Everybody's not really glorifying like those same you know, like I said, attributes and this whole, you know, guerrilla mentality, you know, things is changing to something totally different now. You know, it's kind of ran its course, man. It, you know, it had a good little run. Again, like, you know, you got to realize also in the streets, a lot of stuff, you know, it's not really the same like I was when them guys had they run. And, you know, like you said, you know, G Love, like a lot of these guys in prison now, you know, so a lot of them are dead and you know, it's just the next generation that seen that cause and that wave of that. So, you know, yeah, a lot of them, you know, saying that. I mean, but to be honest, it ain't like this is something going on now. I mean, I've been hearing people say that whole term F the streets for years. So, you know, it ain't like, you know, just because 21 said that, you know, that's like a new wave. I mean, people have been feeling like that for years. But to be honest, I mean, you know, it's like again, it need to be that. It need to be something different now. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think as far as the streets themselves, I mean, that's that's always gonna be there. We should still, tell our stories and and portray them again in art forms and music and in movies. I mean, I always would rather, see another Scarface movie, but again, like from our perspective of what we how we live in in the neighborhood again, like how it
Right.
may be in Atlanta or another city like New York. I mean, everybody have their own forms of that. So now, like what I'm saying, the streets are always gonna be there. So we still got to capitalize on the stuff that's going on in the streets, but
Right.
it don't necessarily have to be where all it's all bad. Like you got to join a gang and crash out in order for you to get a name and make some money. Again, you could be a filmmaker talking about a street story, or like I said, we could be doing like how we doing right now, in the Alligator Pit. We could have like a discussion base where we you marketing the products and marketing our channels and marketing our likeness based on what we doing and based on topics that happen in the streets. So it's
Right.
still ways to capitalize on this whole network of what we got going on with it, because it's gonna still be going on even after we dead and gone. I mean, in a couple of years, these same kids that I was thinking about earlier when I was down in Clayton County, I'm like, you know seeing how when they get out of school, like you still see like kids walking up and down, but it's not, of course, as aggressive as it was 20 plus years ago when we was in middle school and stuff. But pretty soon they gonna be in the streets. You know what I'm saying? They gonna have their stories going on. They gonna be on YouTube talking about documentaries, and it's gonna be a new wave of that soon. So it's like it's gonna still be going on. So it ain't no need of saying like F it, like you could just end it like that, like because there's no way you really got that kind of control. You could just got to capitalize off of it the right way, and and I guess what I mean, like just not be in a position to try to harm somebody out here.
Right. Yeah, and I agree, because basically what it is we really saying F that, criminality aspect of it, because at the end of the day, I've always correlated the streets with the grassroots. Like that's just where, or at least whenever I thought about the streets, it was everywhere. When you ask your parents, can I go outside as a child, you were now in the streets. Now, as far as the activities and the people you were hanging out with in the streets would vary. But what we're really saying is forget the criminality and the criminal element, um, and leaving that behind. And like Crosswire was saying, just extract the good that comes from that and turn it into something bigger. Because at the end of the day, a lot of American culture comes from the melanated grassroots, aka the streets. But we just leaving behind the criminality, because the whole Red Stick family is about coming from the grassroots, and niggas coming from nothing to turning into something. But as these brothers said, like all that criminality and these fake ass codes about not snitching and stuff, like at the end of the day, when you stop doing pressurized situations, and and then you end up in that interrogation room and them folks talking about, look, man, like you gonna get life without, or look, we talking about 30 years or whatever they saying. Like that's a lot of pressure to be up under, especially for people who ain't never really experienced any form of that. So for you to hold these guys by these street codes and these street standards, now for the stupid ones that get themselves involved in something, and then that's where they at, and that's where they at. But a lot of people get put in a trick bag, and then they end up in a situation, and now they uphold to these unreasonable standards about so-called not snitching and stuff. Like there are a lot of people right now that have life in prison without the possibility of parole, for example, because they were with a homeboy or with some people, and they went and committed a murder, and the guy didn't necessarily do it. He didn't even know they were about to do it, but because he was with them, they were telling him like, "Look, you're gonna get life too if you don't tell us what happened." So he's gonna now stand on this so-called code, and now he has life in prison for something he didn't do. He was 18 years old, or he was 20 years old. So it's like it's shit like that make me look at it like, yeah, that's fucked up, because at the end of the day, I can salute and respect, the mindset of wanting to be loyal and not just give your people up. But I don't look at it, I don't want the man to just go down like that either. So it has to be some kind of reconciliation. And the only way is like say, look, man, we're gonna just leave this criminality behind. And for you niggas that's still on that shit, it's like, look, bro, y'all going over there with that. Like we ain't on that over here. And it's like if y'all get caught or whatever, that's on y'all. But I can't snitch on nothing that I don't know about.
Yeah, right.
Because because over here I don't uphold no street culture or none of that. Nigga may roll up
Right.
a couple blunts. Nigga may be on the block with the guys or something like that. But we ain't out there on no other shit, and we ain't got no criminal stuff going on. So I don't
Right.
promote that. I don't advertise that. But as Crosswise say, we just take what we've experienced in the streets and what we know about the streets, and we're going to turn it into something creative for people to learn about it, whether that be through literature, documentaries, movies, etc. Because Red State Family, we got more documentaries that we're going to be working on dealing with Clayton County and Riverdale, and even greater parts of Metro Atlanta, etc. So the Red State Family will always be involved with the streets. But like the brother Noah said, like, now don't say F the streets, like say the F this shit that y'all niggas was up on, because the streets, like it taught me basically majority of what I know that I didn't get from my household or I didn't get from the public education system. So, that's all facts. There was something else I wanted to ask y'all. It was something else. Hold on real quick. Oh yeah, so this is the last question I want to ask y'all before we wrap the live up, because y'all brothers came in. I don't know if Iran got nuclear bombs, but I know y'all do, because y'all just went nuclear in this motherfucker tonight. So this is what I want to ask y'all, man. Let's say you got a 13-year-old nerd and a 13-year-old young street nigga, as they call them, or YN. What kind of jewels would both of y'all give them?
Well, for me first, man, I would just tell those guys, man, like, just don't buy into these pressures of what you feel like you have to do, because a lot of these guys make these choices because they, like I said, you get this either a peer pressure of feeling like, based on what your friends are saying, or based on what somebody that's looked at as lame shouldn't be doing, or based on what some female may like, or something like that. Just don't buy into those pressures, man. As hard as it's going to be to do in those years, especially from 13 to 17 years old, when you don't really know what's going on, saying you easily influenced by stuff, and you really, you really want something that you don't, because a lot of them really want to already be grown. I mean, because again, the nerd guy, he's sticking to in his head like, shoot, I want to already have my own little spot and my girlfriend and be, playing the game and be doing my what I want to do. In his head right now, he's thinking like that's the life, and I don't have to worry about anything else. And with the YN, he may be thinking, shoot, if he really about that shoot, I'm part of like, whatever like gang that he around, and he, next to the big homie, and the big homie giving him 10 rats to go, hit a lick, or, saying to go do a drill, or whatever the case may be, and that all he need to do is just really get close and be in position, and he thinks that's the life. So both of them, really are wrong and have a very small minded thinking in the universe as far as what this Jew has going on, but going back to the previous discussions and the sub reality of that, because both of them are really, potential victims in that, either the nerd's going to be a victim, in the corporate reality, and the YN, he's either just going to be another, a slave in the prison system, or just organ or body, or an organ donor to his cabal system. So, really, both of them are potential victims. So they have to make very, very wise choices, and you have to step, very, in fact, they have to make even wiser choices than we had to make, because, the resources and the times have gotten really tougher, and the resources have gotten more finite. So, even though, you got the internet and all that stuff, but still, like, in your current reality, stuff is harder, way harder than it was when we were younger. So I would tell them, like, yeah, man, just please don't buy into the pressures, man, because it's there.
Yeah, I think I'll kind of reiterate the same. Is like, but y'all folks got to make the sacrifice now. Like, yeah, you young, but even I like how you say a lot of times, Blackbeard, like, you got to be a young man in the old. You got to be a young man with an old man's mentality. Like, y'all folks got a long life ahead of y'all, and if y'all really just stay down, like, y'all can hit success, but it's gonna be a very long, it's gonna be a very treacherous road, man. So like you really ain't got no time to be slipping up. You ain't got no time to be trying to fit in. Like your decision making, bro. Like that's really the main thing I'd probably tell y'all. Like, bro, them life decisions, bro. Like you can make 1,000 moves to go right, but really you just take one move and everything can be messed up, bro. So like y'all young right now, bro. I'm telling you, bro. Just chill. Like be patient. Don't be out here in a rush. Don't be trying to fit in. Like how Crosswire said, don't be out here trying to get what nobody else got and somebody trying to make you do something or crash out. Like, nah, bro, you got to think for yourself. Like the older you get, it's gonna get more lonely. Like, especially if you're trying to be successful. So like go ahead and just walk your own path right now. Like that's your ticket to successful. That's the main thing. Like, bro, your life decisions, bro. The decisions you make right now is really gonna affect y'all later. So don't be trying to get it too early. Like just be patient, and as you grow, everything gonna come to you, man. So just stay solid.
Right. And this also just came to my mind. I want to ask this, and this will be our final question. I mean, yeah, final question. So what game and advice would you all give the guy that may have been knee deep in the streets, but he hadn't gotten that life sentence yet, and he realizes like, damn, I need to get out this gang shit, or man, I need to put the scale down and leave the trap alone, or in other words, he realizes he want to leave the streets alone, but he don't want the people to look at him like he's a lame. He don't want the women to look bad on him, and he's afraid that he's gonna be alone because of the group he grew up with. They don't want to be around him no more. So, what advice would you give the guy that want to leave the streets and transition into something new and be his real nerd self that he always truly was, but he's afraid of letting that street identity go and the credibility that comes with it?
Sure, I probably would tell him just go ahead and walk away now, because to be honest, a lot of the love from the streets, it ain't real anyway. Like you're afraid of losing the people, but they gonna leave you later anyway. A lot of those same girls, they gonna be moving on to another guy. A lot of your homies, they gonna hate on you when you come up. Like, I really would tell them to try to find an OG who probably live that same lifestyle and who can kind of walk him through that path for real. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause I know what it feels like. You know what I'm saying? You want to fit in. You don't want people to talk about you. You want to feel like you're accepted. You don't want to feel like you're changing or whatnot. But especially as a man, especially as a young man out here, like, bro, ain't nobody gonna look out for you except for you. Like, ain't nobody gonna feel sorry for you. Ain't nobody gonna want to do nothing for you. So you making the decision right now. Just go ahead and step out on faith for it. But if I find that OG, find an older mentor that you can talk to, somebody that can kind of walk you through it. And you know what I'm saying, you're doing the right thing.
What you got on that, Crosswire?
You said this guy's about to go to prison.
No, let's say if he he hasn't went to prison yet. He just realized like, man, I need to get out the streets. He like, this shit getting crazy. Like
About how
before
old?
let's say let's say he about maybe between 20 and 25.
Well, what type of street guy is this? Is this like, you know, you're
Let's say
like,
somebody with the gang thing, because you know when you're in the gang, once you denounce it, they feel like they got to put you on the plate now and stuff. So, what would you give him? What advice would you give him?
well, I mean, just yeah, like personally, I mean, if he knows somebody that's in another town or somewhere where he can kind of get a fresh start, my honest suggestion would be to tell him, bro, you need to go ahead and probably make that move and you know, go on ahead and go on a new odyssey as far as that direction. And that'll really test to see if he's really serious, you know, based on that alone. And if he goes ahead and make that path, I would tell him, bro, you know, of course, to lock in, get a little basic little job somewhere, you know what I'm saying, rather than it's cleaning. I don't care if it's warehouse. If you got a felony on your record, well, then you better go ahead and do that and make that decision. You better do that. You better stay at home. You better not really be around too many people. Maybe have a little female you deal with, be at the spot. And you better have a plan that you got going on and commoditize what's going on with this internet, you know, and everything that you could use with that, because you don't really have to physically deal with people. And whatever this idea is you're doing, you have to like really be creative and being spaced away from other people doing that, you know, in whatever little space and time that you in. Like, you know, if you staying with somebody, I don't care if it's a little square in the room, then you need to be locked in that square, working on your idea and just going to your regiment and going to work, doing that and doing what you need to do and staying out the way. And if you a nigga that feel like you got to be around other people or you got to, you know, be in the midst or you feel like you missing out on stuff like that, then it ain't really too much I can really tell you, because you're going to end up slipping. And especially at that age, you ain't really had too many, like, you know, mistakes. You ain't really had nothing that really affected you too long in life. You're going to end up slipping and making a mistake and all. You're going to have to go through that. And it really ain't much I can tell you, honestly.
That's facts. That's facts. So what we're gonna do now is get ready to end the stream. But what I want both of these gentlemen to do is just to tell the people where they can find you at on social media, and maybe some projects or things that you're working on that they can expect in the future. But just kind of get the people a little background on what you want to leave them with. Excuse me.
Actually, I share the people. I'm being mainly on the little Instagram, little Facebook. You can find me at Mental Gardens. I'm mainly on the gardening flow, like especially it's really like a return to the land. Like y'all see the food prices going up, stuff going on with gas, and so one day we really gonna have to learn how to feed ourselves. So even how Blackbeard talked about, like we really are returning to the land. So anything as far as like farming, we really looking to provide food and sustenance for our own people for real. Like we need to learn how to feed ourselves. Then I also been on the little electrician flow. We looking to start our own electrician company because I'm saying everything is going to the solar. We all need some type of power. So even how Finkelstein told y'all in the last video, like if you're not working for yourself, like you really are wasting time. So like we're really just doing things that's going towards self and community self-sustainability, like getting on the electrician flow and getting on the farming flow for real. So y'all can check me out. Even on the YouTube, I'm on the G Love and definitely a Mental Gardens on the Instagram and Facebook. And y'all folks stay solid out here, man. Y'all stay solid for real.
Right, most definitely. And I see that the brother Crosswire may have accidentally clicked out or something like that, but hold on. Oh, yeah, here he is real quick.
Y'all hear me?
Yeah. We got a brother Crosswire. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the people just wanted to get your last conclusion.
Yeah, man. Right. As far as just stuff I got going on personally right now, it's not really too much. Like I said, you guys can catch me on my live streams. So we could probably get ready to start cranking that back up maybe in a few days. I just have really been in the mood to really do that lately in like the last month or so. Just kind of personally dealing with stuff going on. But y'all guys can check me out with that. Live streams. As far as any like long stream productions. I might have a little game review I might put out this year. I mean, of course, keep that series going. I've done selling to your independence. Eventually, I start putting more stuff I have going on business wise that I'll be working on to kind of give you guys other ideas of financial opportunities you can make, in addition to doing your creative stuff, just to make things a little easier for you. But I just say everybody just stay tuned until the the discussions that we have. I say you check out my boy Blackbeard Mirage's book. Check out my boy G Love's channel. Check out everything we got going on, and I'll just stay tuned on the channels. Of course, make sure your notification bells is locked in, and I say for the most part, just make sure all that stuff is pressed, and eventually the content will be out, and we go keep this engine rolling.
Right, most definitely. But yet, but as these brothers said, the Red Stick family, we got a lot of stuff coming right now. Me personally, I'm just pushing this book, Scorperotika. That's gonna be all year. We getting copies, we pushing them out to the people, making America read again. And as far as video productions, myself, the brother G Love, the brother Houdini, a lot of other people, but we're gonna do some Red Stick family documentaries, day in the life, show behind the scenes of how we live in here in Metro Atlanta. On the south side, different parts of the city, and also in the country as well, showing you all the land and some of the agricultural projects that we're going to be working on, but just more behind the scenes stuff, and just interacting and connecting more with the people. But we got plenty more to come out, man. And I appreciate these brothers coming on. We'll have another live stream, if not in a couple of days, most certainly starting back early next week. But, you all just be patient with us, and it's going to be more to come. And for those that want to purchase the book, once again, it's available. Just email me at redstickmirage7@gmail.com, and you can get the book after I get your information. But we got a lot more to come, man. In 2026, starting out to be a good year. We're going into the springtime right now. So just continue to look out for the Red Stick family. We got a lot of members we're going to introduce to this live stream, and we're going to just keep the platform going. And, everybody just stay down and come up, stay focused. Stay concentrated, make good decisions. And until then, you all look out for the next live, and we out.
So.
Deuce.